Great. Okay, I'm going to try my best to keep this within the 5 minutes of a flash talk. But yes, I'm Laura Rye. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Goldsmiths University of London. And I'm going to present some research from the NeuroLive project, which is a 5-year research project investigating what makes live experiences special. And we study this through the performing arts. So there are at least 2 features of live events from the fields of theatre and performance studies. Firstly, they are unique and non-reproducible, so they can only be experienced once in the exact same way. And secondly, they involve co-presence between performers and spectators. So essentially, they involve a social interaction in which at least 2 people are communicating. As part of this study, we commissioned a contemporary dance duet titled Detective Work, and this was performed across 3 evenings in a dance theatre space in London. This is a description of the work by the performers themselves. However, the piece used compositional principles of counterpoint and improvisation and consisted of 21 choreographic sections. Okay, so moving into our methods. So to study co-presence in this study, we used the hyperscanning technique to record EEG activity from 23 audience members simultaneously. And across 3 performance evenings, this led to a final N of 59, taking into account technical issues and data loss. There are many ways to calculate brain synchrony or similarity in brain activity across time. However, here we've used the intersubject correlations method proposed by Cohen and Para. And there's an existing literature cited here linking brain synchrony or group synchrony to engagement. However, the majority of this research has been conducted on individuals, for example, watching a movie clip or a video clip on their own rather than together as a group. And this raises the question of whether brain synchrony findings reflect an actual shared experience or simply perceiving the same stimulus. Okay, so moving straight into the results. So these are the brain synchrony findings during detective work across the 1 hour of the performance. And here we can see how the audience's brain synchrony fluctuates, and it's strongest in the delta frequency band. So the EEG synchrony is strongest in the slower frequency bands. The statistical significance of this audience synchrony was determined based on 1,000 iterations of randomized EEG data. And on the plot on the right, the colored blocks indicate statistically significant time points based on the 95th percentile of these randomized data sets. So again, what we see here is that the majority of statistically significant time points are happening in the delta frequency band. Okay, so next we ask the choreographer and performer of the work to make continuous predictions of the audience's collective attention. So here, higher values indicate when the choreographer and performer thought that the audience's synchrony would be more focused, whereas lower values indicate when he expected their collective attention to be more dispersed. And the sections across the bottom are the 21 sections of the detective work performance. And what we see when we plot this alongside the audience's brain synchrony in the delta frequency band is that there is a relationship between the 2 of these. Furthermore, the highlighted sections here indicate when the audience's group synchrony was statistically higher during the performance relative to a baseline resting state period. And what's happening on the stage during these moments of high synchrony is that the performers are moving in a very synchronized manner, and they're actually directly interacting with the audience. So they're breaking the fourth wall. They're making direct eye contact with members of the audience. Okay, so the final part that I'm going to discuss in the results section of this is a Granger Causality analysis where we extracted multiple features of the performance. So features of the soundtrack, including the audio pulse clarity, the volume of the soundtrack, the dancer's movement acceleration, the distance between the 2 dancers on the stage, in addition to the audience's respiration synchrony, features of the lighting, and finally the choreographer's continuous ratings, which I mentioned in the previous slide. So these heat maps depict p-values from pairwise Granger causality tests between each of the features on the left and C1, or the audience's brain synchrony. And basically what we find across the three performances is that the choreographer's ratings of predicted collective attention are significantly predicting audience brain synchrony. Okay, so I think hopefully I haven't gone too much over time, but just in a brief conclusion, here we showed that hyperscanning from 23 audience members simultaneously is indeed possible. We showed that the choreographer's artistic intentions are significant predictors of collective audience engagement, and that this may be a mechanism for cultural transmission in live events. Our future directions are to compare these results with groups watching pre-recorded videos of detective work and individuals watching a video of detective work on their own. So thank you very much for listening, and this is the artistic and research teams behind this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was a whirlwind and amazing work. I luckily enough had not looked at your poster beforehand, so that was all fresh and very, very impressive indeed. I'm going to check if there's some questions in the room. Otherwise, I have lots to say. Somebody, Peter, you're looking at me very intently. Okay, so Laura, I don't know if you were able to hear Emily Cross's keynote this morning, but she was trying to, put forward the idea of, first of all, what makes human performance so special, and then also on the other hand, I think she was trying to say what is it that helps us to engage or embody artistic presentations or stimuli, and I think you captured that so nicely with this idea of uniqueness. The uniqueness of a live event, and then in your results you clearly show that there's something about this artist's intention or the performer's intention to engage and potentially then also result in interbrain synchrony. I'm curious to know a little bit, so the particular kind of work that you're using here, this detective piece, breaks that fourth wall, as you said, specifically tries to target audience engagement. That isn't necessarily the case for other art forms. How important is it, do you think, is this just one way in which you can cause interpersonal coordination or synchrony, or do you think there are other ways that we can get in? Is it through expertise doing these amazing things like the reproducibility, the Cirque du Soleil effect that we heard from Emily today? Do you think this is just one way in which we can do that?
Well, I think it's interesting because I don't know if the artists intend to make the audience's brain synchrony, or collective attention peak at certain moments. It seems to be after the fact that we find, oh, actually, all of these different features actually combine together. It's not just the music or the soundtrack, it's actually a combination of all these various things together that actually causes brain synchrony, which is almost a little bit surprising in one way, because we have features such as like the soundtrack pulse clarity or beat clarity, which you think an audience would entrain to, and that would, perhaps be a very significant, group synchrony feature. So yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question fully here.
I don't think there is an answer per se. I think what you're saying is that it might be multifactorial. Peter, you have a question. I don't know if that's a finger or go ahead.
Yeah. What part of the brain is the synchrony you're measuring? Is that just an average of the brain?
Laura, did you hear the question?
Hear it's fully there.
Can you speak a little bit?
Yes, although we don't have the hour.
It's
Okay.
connected now. So if you speak a little bit louder.
So the
Do you hear now, Laura?
The neural synchrony between the audience members, is that whole brain average synchrony, or is it some parts of the brain?
Yeah, so we used 32 channel EEG, and it's all 32 channels. Basically, the intersubject correlations method, it takes the amplitude or the power spectrum according to our frequency bands across time. And it's we use 5-second windows, and it basically computes covariance matrices between all possible combinations of 23 individuals in our case. And then from those that massive covariance matrices, it actually extracts almost like a principal components analysis, a so-called correlated component, which reflects when the audience's brain activity is similar, I guess. So yes, it's all 32 channels. Yeah.
Then I guess it makes sense that it's multimodal. The stuff
Yeah, that
is synchronous, right?
multiple dimensions might affect it.
Do you think this is synchrony just because they're looking at the same thing? Or is there something more going on in that?
So I don't think so, because we've tried to answer this in various different ways. For example, we compared across the 3 nights people who were sitting in the exact same seats versus people who had different perspectives throughout the performance. So if the synchrony was just due to people watching the same thing, people who were sitting in the exact same seat would have really high synchrony, what we would predict from that. Whereas people who had different perspectives or a different depth perception of the 2 dancers on stage would experiencing something different. But what we actually found is that there was no difference between people sharing the exact same perspective versus people attending within the same night. So yes, it looks like it's not just that. Yeah. Although then when we find the higher synchrony moments, it's when the dancers are more synchronized. So there obviously is an element of that too.
I think maybe with your follow-up studies looking at the cinema setup, then potentially you could also manipulate that a little bit.
Because the perspective would affect only like
visual areas or lower. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the cinema comparison will be the useful
question.
I mean, this is since Uri's Hassan's first one, right? It's always been like, first of all, what are you measuring at all, right? What does it even mean? And second, what are the actual mediators of what you're seeing? I think that's a question we will not answer here today, but we do have our second flash. Laura, thank you so much for sticking to time. Thank you for your great presentation and your great work.
Thank you very much.
Say that we have a panel discussion on how best to capture these experiences, both as a performer or as an audience member. And I think the way you're going about it is certainly very much in the direction that people need to be going. So thank you so much for the great work you're doing.